Welcome to another Early Years Learning Hub podcast. My name is Jackie Ward and I'm the founder and managing director of the Early Years Learning Hub. This podcast is part of our series called Practice Sharing, and today I'm speaking with Bernadette Reyes, director at Tregear Presbyterian Preschool, about how she leads the way in developing collaborative partnerships in ways that support vulnerable children and families that she works with to navigate the systems and supports to help children thrive. I first met Bernadette when I visited Nick Stevens, one of our earlier podcast guests, and I was so interested and inspired by what Bernadette was doing that I invited her to be a guest and share her wisdom. Bernadette, would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your professional journey?
First of all, good morning, Jackie, and good morning to all the listeners. My name is Bernadette, and I've been the director of Tregear Presbyterian Preschool for nearly 13 years now. I'm an early childhood teacher, and I've worked in various roles across the sector for the last 20 years. So that includes long day care, out of school hours care, and now in preschool. I've always been deeply passionate about providing the highest quality education and care to the children under my care and their families, and also building and supporting families, building positive relationships and supporting families in their journey for their child's learning and development.
Awesome, that sounds amazing, and it really radiates when I visited your place, Bernadette, that you could tell that you were really interested in the best outcomes for children and families, and I love that. I love to see people that are really passionate about their work, and I think it makes such a difference. You know, we don't always keep touch with our families and know what happens when they're sort of, into high school and then go into careers. These are the things that I think make a difference when we work that way. So I wanted to talk a little bit about supporting families with diverse needs, because you have quite a lot of, different vulnerabilities and children with disabilities and all sorts of things at your preschool. So a big part of your job involves supporting those families. And why is this so important to you, do you think?
Just to give you a brief background about our preschool. So our preschool is located in Tregear, Mount Druitt, which is in Sydney's western suburbs. And we are proud to be a community preschool that welcomes and supports a very diverse group of children and families. So many of the children enrolled are from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander backgrounds. We've got children from culturally and linguistically diverse communities and from families experiencing financial hardships. We also have a high number of children with additional needs and children from trauma background. So just to answer your question, we believe that, supporting families is really at the heart of what we do in the preschool. For us, it's not just about the child who comes through the gates of the preschool in the morning. It's just really recognizing that that child belongs first to their family. And the family is the first and foremost an important, influence in the child's development. So as we know, the early years learning framework reminds us that, children learn best when the parents and the educators collaborate together for the best outcomes of the children. And we know even Quality Area 6 about having those positive collaborative partnerships with families. It's really essential for children to thrive. So at our preschool, we have many of our children, many of our families. As I said earlier, they do have significant vulnerabilities, whether it's social, emotional, financial, or even connected with trauma, which we do have a number of. I think for these families, having a preschool that does not just educate their children, but also walks alongside with them. We really hear a lot of stories from our families, at the end of the journey with us, that they're really thankful how we've worked alongside with them in this journey. So it means, it would even just mean linking them to local health, linking them to allied services, or supporting their parenting, or just being a place where their child feels safe and welcome. I think, and their voices are heard. So if, sometimes we think about big programs, big things that we want to do for the children, but we've always said that if we can even be that safe space for those children, then I think we've done our jobs. We always try our very best to work alongside with families, and I think when we support families, it's not an extra thing that we do. Because sometimes I would hear other directors would say, when I go to networks, like, that's too much for us. Like, we can't really do that. For me, it's not an extra thing that we do, but it's actually our core responsibility. It's in the very core of what we need to do. So, by working hand in hand with families, we build trust, we create consistency for children, and we ensure that the most vulnerable children are not left behind because they are surrounded by a network of care and support.
I love that. And it really shone through when I was chatting with you at the preschool, Bernadette, that idea that it was ingrained into what you do. It wasn't an additional job. And I think you explained it really, really well there. When you're working with families with complex needs, you just need to peel everything else back, don't you? And create that sense of belonging and safety and cultural safety and security and trauma-informed practice. It's so important, isn't it? And that idea, this is a really good example too, where I talk about instead of writing references to theories in documentation, you're living it, aren't you? Brofenbrenner's theory that children exist within the context of family and community, and they're not, you can't separate that. You need to see them as that. You need to, if you're going to nurture and help the child learn, you need to do that same thing for families sometimes if they're vulnerable as well. So congratulations, you do an amazing job. I'm really, really awe-inspired. So I guess the next thing, is, what we just talked about then, the impact of not investing in connecting with families. So working with vulnerable families means that, children have high needs. And what is your role in terms of supporting access and participation? Because I remembered you talking to me a little bit about helping families understand, diagnosis reports and things like, and getting NDIS and all. What do you do in that regard?
Yeah, so I think it begins with enrollment. So the impact of not supporting families in that area is quite huge, because then that means that the children would miss out on essential services, they miss out on early intervention, and the families are really, most of them, not everyone, but most of them that we have in our preschool would be lost in the system. So I remember, I think it started with when we were having a number of parents really asking questions, what do we need to do? I've got this NDIS, what's my next step? Or they don't know how to use it, or so many other things that be confusing for many families. So what we have tried to do at the preschool is to support them in that. So even at enrollment, so it begins with the wait list or enrollment, where we already ask, have this conversations with families if they've got developmental concerns, if they have diagnosis. We actually take the time to read through their reports and go through it with them and say, okay, have you done this one? Because there can be 10 recommendations in one. If you read a report, there's 10 recommendations there, and sometimes, they don't know where to start. So, but what happens is that they end up not doing anything. But then when we unpack it with them and would say, okay, what are you doing with this one? Has your child been able to access allied health support? And for some of them, not yet. We also try our very best to connect them to find some if we know allied health support services that we can connect with, or any other programs in the community that we're able to reach out to, we try to link them to these families. I remember when I first started at the preschool, I had no idea like what to do, where to go. But I think that prompted me, because when parents would start asking me, what do I need to do? That prompted me to think, okay, what's out there? And that's when I started attending network meetings or finding out what else is available for families. And you will be surprised that there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of help out there if you only just pick up the phone or, try Google or something, or attend. What I do is attend network meetings, because I actually meet people there and connect with them, and then bring them to the preschool or try to connect with them to say, like an example would be our hearing test for children. We did not have that for a long time, and we realized that we needed to have them too, because our speech therapy said, okay, so times when children are not able to speak well, it could also be about their hearing. We tried to do that, and there was no funding for that, but we found this organization that was doing that. And because we do have a high number of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, this particular program was only for them. But then our community engagement officer, we had a meeting with them, and we said, we have this number of children, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, but can you also see the others? And they are great because we have, and so they were able to come to the preschool, and up to this day, we're having that. I think they come at least 2 or 3 times a year to do hearing tests for our children. So those little things, like those are little steps that we do so that we can really support our families. So I think it's just a matter of finding out what's out there, linking them with, linking the families to them, or linking the organization with the families. That's really been really supportive for our families. So in the preschool, we do individual learning plans, and we really collaborate with families and really walk alongside with them and journey with them. We've even had times where, an educator would accompany one of our parents to a pediatrician appointment, just for them to have someone with them, or to help them understand what it is. So we've got support people. We even have our educators, if we've got children transitioning to school, that they have to meet with a school counselor or school psychologist, that we've got staff members. We're able to release some of our staff members our educators to be able to attend those meetings. And we really focus on that, especially our children transitioning to big school. We do, like, mid-year, we already start the process of helping them with the access request forms, liaising with the school, and all of those things. So it may look like there's so much happening, and it is true that there's so much behind the scenes that are happening to make those happen. But I think taking those little steps and making the parents feel that you're not isolated, we're here for you, is a big thing for them.
I think that's so important. So many things that you've said there, Bernadette, have resonated with me. That idea that an early childhood service is a connector, and the people there are there to support families as well as children, because if you didn't, then that child's trajectory is so much more diminished, I guess. If you hadn't, like, early intervention, if that child starts school and, they don't get all of these things until later on, it has such a strong impact. So, yeah, as I said, very admirable work. So I think you've talked a little bit about some of the main benefits on connecting with the community for children and families. One of the things that's really resonated about for me is because, often I hear people talk about, their version of what they think is demonstrating meaningful engagement with families. And I just think what you've just described there is really authentic, meaningful engagement with families, meeting families where they're at and providing the supports that they need. So I guess, how did you start that sort of idea, and how do you ensure everyone has a voice? Because it must be tricky, I can imagine, working with, diverse language backgrounds and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think meaningful engagement with families is something that we've really worked hard to build. It didn't happen overnight, and over time we've seen firsthand how children flourish when families and educators truly collaborate. I think it started with that. So, and as I said, when I first stepped into that preschool 13 years ago, there were already around 40 children with additional needs. At the preschool. And
that's a lot.
A lot. And I think at that time I was really wondering how do we support all of these children? How do we provide the best care for them? My mom would always tell me, if you do something, do it well or not at all.
Yeah.
And that's about excellence too. So when you're entrusted with something, do the best that you can to do the job. And I think for me, first of all, it's not just a job. I think it's a calling, it's a ministry, it's something that we're passionate about. So as I said, it started with having families, one after the other, asking me questions. So this one particular mom, so the child was new in the preschool. He was nonverbal. He didn't have any diagnosis. He was really having difficulty following routines and everything. And one day mom came up to me crying, and she said, my child has just been diagnosed with autism level 3. And she said, what do I do now? Where do I take him? Where will he study? Which school will he go to? Do I take him out of this preschool? And I said, no. I said, we're here for you. He remains at this preschool, and we will try our very best, to support you. He belongs here. But you know what? The truth at that time was, I didn't really know. Honestly, I didn't really know fully what I needed to do. But I knew that we had to learn together. So slowly we started building connections with allied health professionals, bringing them in, bringing in community supports and putting strategies in place. And we worked really closely with mom. And over time, we saw the child engage, we saw the child flourish, we saw him thrive. And a year after he finished at the preschool, mom came back to the preschool and was thanking us for walking alongside with her and, for the journey and for making her son feel supported, that he belonged in our space, and for showing her that there's hope, because she was really hopeless for her child at that time. And today he's doing well in school, he's thriving, and that story has always stayed with me, because if she was not supported at that time, I don't know, what would have happened to that child. But I think that story has made me think about, okay, it is possible. It's not impossible to help that one little child. If we were able to help that one little child, then surely we can help more children. And it has been for the past many, many years that, at the end of the year when we see them, how they thrive and they flourish, and hear stories when they're actually in school, just warms our heart. And so now at the beginning of the year, when we've got new children who will, we know that they have got needs. Like, when we do the meet and greet, we can already identify, even if they have no diagnosis yet. I'm full of hope for those children, because I don't see them as, this child with all these needs. I already see beyond that, because I've seen it many, 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 many times, over and over again. And so and that's why we also encourage the families. Like, that's why we're confident to work alongside with families, because we've seen it work. And every year we do something different. It's not the same things that we've been doing for the past 13 years. Like, things evolve, new things happen, new things in the community are available. And as we continue to reflect as a team, and we're big on that, always really reflect as a team, then more ideas, more things, we are able to think about how we can better support. And I think that's the thing about critical reflection. When you truly reflect, you think about how can we further improve our practices. I think that's what we have been doing over the past years. Like, every single time it keeps getting better and better. It keeps improving. And up to this day, we're still working on things. Like, I don't think we've ever done the same thing for the past 13 years, like exactly the same every year. There's always something different. There's always something new that we can think about, or something else that we can provide for our families.
It's a really good point you make there, Bernadette, because I think a lot of people think that, there's an end to the journey of critical reflection or continuous improvement, but it's not. It's just ever evolving, and there's always ways. And the dynamics of your family and your community change, even if it's slightly, every year, don't they? So there's always a reason to do things a little bit differently. And also too, sometimes when you look at things through a different lens, that because you might not have had a child from a particular background or with a particular need, that you look at it from that lens and you go, oh yeah, there's definitely room to change that or shift that, or so yeah, that's awesome. One of the things that I've been lucky enough to attend lots of conferences over the years, some that are outside of early childhood, and that idea has been raised many times of collective impact. And I know you're in the postcode of a really great project. I think it's led by the Front Project, called The Hive. I was just interested if you would be interested to share a little bit about that project and how that works and how that sort of benefits your community.
Yeah, so the Hive is a place-based collective impact initiative that they bring together services, schools, community organizations across the 2770 postcode. And they have one shared goal, and that is that all children in Mount Druitt start school well, with equal opportunities to learn, be healthy, and feel part of community life. So the Hive started in our area 10 years ago. I remember that, because they started coming to our preschool and telling us all about the initiative. At that time, it sounded really good to me, but didn't really make sense to me at that time. Like, thinking, oh, that's a really good project, but how does it really look like? So we've been really blessed and privileged to be partnering with the Hive, because then they do a lot of things. So one is we started with the early childhood educators network. So at the beginning, they gathered a number of directors in the area where it's about collaborative learning. So they sponsored a training for all directors for the full year, and it
Wow.
was once every month, and they were really, really good. So it's to build the capacity of the directors, which is also aiming to build, the quality of early childhood services in the area, because there was not a lot of services that were, rated as meeting or exceeding in the area at that time. So we started with that. The following year, I think we did like a research study together and those things. So it has already from there, it has built the network of directors in the area. So now we share practices. We don't see each other as competitions, because there's a lot of children that we need to cater for. So it's a good network. So now we regularly meet bi-monthly, and they do trainings. They facilitate trainings for educators, and also that we're able to share our practices with each other, and resources are shared in that space. So it's a really good network. Another thing that they've done is that they also offer brokerage for families. It's not really announced in services, but they've supported many services in the area for, if families are behind their fees, they're able to pay for that. If, they need bond to pay for bonds. For our preschool, the help that they have been providing for us is supporting our children with additional needs. If they need to have assessments, like if they have been recommended for speech assessments, they actually are able to pay for that, and also at least pay for 5 free speech or OT therapy sessions for these families. And that starts it off, and it empowers and helps the families. So some of them have continued on with the therapy sessions, or they linked with an early childhood service with a therapist and those things. So early intervention is really the best. So they have an they call them the early childhood linker. So some families are linked to our preschool. So some of the enrollments at our preschool are from them. So they identify the most vulnerable in the community, are linked to them, and they're able to link them with us, with services in the area, and support them in the enrollment process. Because some of the families might just be, would not have any idea what other services are out there, or what's the best for their child. So through the help of the Hive, they're able to be linked. So not if they're supporting one particular family and they've got preschool age children, they link them to early childhood services, and then support the families in their other needs. So if it's food or other parenting support that they can provide. So it's just really that wraparound service, and always gathering the community to really work together. It's not one person or one organization becoming famous for something, but it's really having that wraparound support for the children that works really well. So it's been a really great, they have really made a tangible difference in the lives of many families in the area, even in just that last 10 years of serving that community. And it's been powerful. It's a catalyst for change too.
Yeah, I can see that as well. And just that understanding so well the community, and the barriers are those
Yeah.
really practical things like money. Everything comes down to money. And if you have to move because you can't pay your rent or whatever, that has, huge repercussions for a child, particularly with additional needs and things, doesn't it? To be unsettled, and then takes time for the new service if they end up at another one. I just love the notion that's a community working together to, really, as you say, wrap around the family and really support them where they need it. So that's really interesting. Obviously, if you're not in that postcode, it's not relevant. But as you mentioned before, Bernadette, people need to look out into their community and see what supports are available, because there's a lot of support out there for families, isn't there? Especially vulnerable families. So if you're listening, I think the key is just look into your community and find out what's available, and find out how you might connect with those support services to support your
Yes, I
family.
think it also depends on your service context. So
Mm.
it doesn't mean that, have all these services. It really depends on the cohort, like the children and the families in your service. But as I said earlier, it's not impossible. Even just one service that you're able to connect with that you think may be able to support your families, that would be really good for the families.
Exactly. I just wanted to finish on this notion of your leadership, Bernadette. So, leading caring practice, I think, is a really great leadership quality to have. So, I'm wondering, like, how would you say that you really how do you sort of lead that and develop that caring kind of attitude within your preschool?
That's a really meaningful question. The other day, I actually read a quote the other day by John Maxwell that actually really resonated with me, and I shared it with the rest of our leadership team. He said, "You can care about people without leading them, but you cannot lead people without caring about them." So for me, that sums the heart of leadership. At our preschool, everything begins with care. Caring for children, caring for the families, caring for each other as a team. There are so many challenging days for us with the amount of children with high learning support needs that we have. But if we build those positive relationships with each other, it's actually the foundation of what we do. It's caring. I am just so proud of our team because we've got a team of deeply passionate, loving, and caring educators. And you can sense that when you walk into the preschool. I hope you sense that, Jackie, when you
I
came
did,
to
yeah.
visit us. And many people are, when they come and visit our preschool, they would sense that. And I think it's just that commitment, really, to, if you're there, commitment to love the children, to educate, because we're in education and care service.
Yeah.
So we're just not educating the children, we're caring for them and providing that safe space for them. It hasn't happened by accident, of course, but we work intentionally to make sure that everyone knows their own values. So every single person, we've talked about what their values are. We connect them with our philosophy, and we allow those beliefs to guide us in our everyday practices. So, of course, as I said earlier, there are so many hard and challenging days, sometimes very difficult ones. We get hit, kicked, bitten, and everything. But, especially when working with children and families experiencing vulnerabilities. But when we remain focused on what we need to do, then, and why we're here, why are we doing what we are doing? I think those challenges can be overcome. And each year we see children flourish and grow, and we provide that environment that is a safe environment for children where they can flourish and grow. And I think as a leader myself, I always just have that thinking that, I'm not there to just lead them, but to walk alongside with them, to care for them. And I think that's at the very heart of everything that we do. So as a leader, because, the people around you will sense your heart. You can speak many beautiful words, but if people know that it's not coming from the heart, the way that you serve other people, it's not coming from the heart, people will actually sense that. As I said to you, Jackie, earlier, when we had the visit when we had our assessment and rating visit, the assessor actually said to me, the first 5 minutes I sat down there, I can sense the genuine relationships in this space, and that's something that you cannot fake on a visit like this. So I think it's just having that heart, really. If you have a big heart for the children and the families, it is just felt by everyone. No, I think it's just thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here. I think it just really comes back to, it comes back to the child. And what we do as early childhood educators is that we always want the best for each child that comes through our services. But also understanding that it takes a village, it's a village that surrounds them, and we cannot work in isolation. I think the biggest thing for me is that I've learned in the past 13 years as a director of a service is that we don't need to do it alone, that we have other services out there that are willing or able and capable to support us. We just need to find them, reach out to them, and to think about how we can best support each child and family that comes through our services, that when they leave our services, they have felt that they have been supported, that they have a voice, they've